Hello and welcome to Broadcast. My name is Tom and we are currently in our Church Planting Practical Foundation series where we're looking at some of the things that are involved on the ground in planting a church. We are live on our YouTube channel, so hi to everyone watching on there. Please do give us a like and a subscribe. And we're also live on our podcast feed, so give us a rating and a review if you are on there. It's great to be with you on the feed as well. Broadcast, we're all about being a conversation partner to serve people on the front lines of ministry. And speaking about those things that when you're involved in church planting or leadership or cross-cultural ministry or all different ways of serving the kingdom, the conversations that are going on anyway. And today we are talking church planting. This is the Practical Foundation series sitting alongside the biblical foundations, where we've explored God's mission and the place that church planting has in that. We are now getting into questions of how do we actually do it, and this is session 2 of the series. We began by looking at the idea of calling. So if we're convinced that church planting is God's idea and it's something that is part of his mission in the world, then the question is, well, what about me then? What part do I play in it? Is it something that God's asking me to do? And if so, is it something he's asking me to do in this particular place and at this particular time? That's a question of calling. We're going to, in this session, move on to the question of vision. So if you are believing that God is calling you into church planting, then the next question is, okay, so what is it then that you're meant to do? What is it you're meant to build? What is the vision for what is going to happen next? And as we're talking about vision, we can distinguish it from a few other things just to help us clarify what we are talking about. Vision, for instance, is different to burden. So we sometimes talk about burden when we're talking about our response to a need or a pain point or a lack. We see something or we hear about something and it troubles us within. That's a burden. When our spirit catches this sense, oh, that's not as it should be. It's a pain, it's a response to a negative thing. An example of this would be Nehemiah in scripture. So you've got Nehemiah gets messengers coming to him from Jerusalem talking about the state of the city walls. They're all broken down, haven't been rebuilt. The people living there are vulnerable and under threat. And Nehemiah is bothered by it. He's troubled by it. That's the thing we mean by burden. At this point, though, we're not yet in the territory of vision. Burden is the sense of the problem. Vision is the articulation of the solution. Vision is, this is what we need to see happen. It's a much more positive way of, this is what could be. It's a different future. It's a way of saying, this is what I see. Not right now, but this is what I see happening with God through this thing in the future. That's what we're talking about with vision. There's a connection between the two. The burden that we feel about the present need feeds into the vision for the future, but it's not quite the same thing. Another thing that vision is different from is strategy. Now, strategy is more focused on the question of how something is done rather than what is it we want to achieve. So let me give you an example. Maybe you're saying, what I want to do is build a really big attractional church that people are drawn to. Well, what you've just said there is strategy. Like, building the attractional church isn't in and of itself what you want to see. What you want to see is people reached, people become Christians, people find eternal life in Jesus in the town, city, wherever it is you are. How are you going to go about seeing that happen? Well, building that kind of church might be your answer to that question. So you've got your vision for reaching people, and then your strategy is how you're going to go about doing it. Or you might say, what we want to do is focus on house churches, build a network of different churches in the home. That's a strategy. And what's it a strategy for? It's a strategy for seeing a community reach, seeing the kingdom of God advance in an area, which is what we're talking about with vision. Alistair Campbell was a political advisor to the Tony Blair government, but he talks about the difference between a goal, which we're using the language of strategy for that. So we're using the language of vision for goal, and then strategy and tactics, and they're different things. So you got your vision or goal, your strategy, and your tactics. And your tactics are things that can change all the time. These are the things that you're doing day by day, week by week. We'll start this program. It might run for a few months, then we might stop it. And all the little choices that you make on the ground are your tactics. Your strategy is a bit bigger picture than that. It's more long scale. It's an enduring thing. It's about how you're going about doing what you're doing. In church circles, we'd often call this your philosophy of ministry. That's the kind of language we'd use. And you wouldn't change this often. Like maybe it's something that once in a while you would, but if you did change the way you're doing things, it would be a big deal. It would take lots of conversations with lots of people, take lots of prayer. You wouldn't want to do it very often at all. Something like a church that's been meeting in one meeting for years and years and years that decides to go multi-site. Like think like that scale of change, how much would be involved, how much consulting, bringing everyone on board, possibly lose people over it. That's like the strategy or philosophy of ministry level stuff. But the vision sits even more central to what you do. It's more like the North Star of what you're all about. It doesn't change as you move forward. There might be a place for prophetic refinement to it, certain bits of it being emphasized in different seasons. That's all well and good, but this is kind of, this is what we're about. It's what we've always been about. It's why we've planted the church. It's why we're doing what we do. This is kind of a big guiding vision that we've got. It needs to be sufficiently broad that it will hold you through different seasons, different modes of being, different sizes, even different philosophies of ministry for the church. The vision is what holds things together. It's also different to your values as well. Your values are more like the kind of guiding principles. If the vision is this is where we're going, this is what we're building, your values might be, and here's who we are while we do it. You might emphasize things like being radically welcoming, being generous, having prayer as a foundation. These kind of things would be your values as you go. That's not the vision, that's who you are as you're going after whatever it is you're going after. So your values kind of sit beneath your vision a bit. And it is worth thinking about and trying to name your values early on, because they'll shape your culture, and it's a lot easier to build your culture from the start than to try and change it and bring it in later. So definitely worth thinking about your values. But right now our focus is on the vision. This is what we're going for. This is what we are all about. This is what we're doing as a church. So you want to formulate your vision. How do you do it? Like, what is it? Like, what is it that you need to be thinking of at this point? Well, there's a few ingredients that you might want to think about as you're considering your vision for church planting. And the first one is the Great Commission. There's a sense in which our vision has already been given to us by Jesus. Like when he'd risen from the dead and he'd gathered his disciples and he said, go, make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. There it is. There's a vision, and it's already been given to us. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. But years ago, we did a broadcast interview with Steph Liston, my old pastor, and he said this. I think he was dead right as well. He said vision is basically saying the Great Commission in a contextually appropriate way with a little bit of the prophetic sprinkled in. I think that's brilliant, because that is what we're doing, isn't it? We're not coming up with something new. And if what we came up with was new and totally different to the commission Jesus has given us, it's like, well, we're on the wrong lines. Like, we're doing this. We're church planting as an application of the mission Jesus has given us. So our vision is his vision. And his vision is what he said: make disciples of the nations, baptize them, and teach them to obey. That is what we are about. So we are saying the Great Commission as we are articulating our vision. You might have noticed as well, though, in that quote from Steph, he added in the idea of a bit of the prophetic. And I think that is important as well. That question of, but how is God guiding us? What's God been saying to us as we've been kind of gathering and preparing for this plan? Maybe even as part of discerning your own calling as a church planter, there's specific stuff that God's been saying, laying on your heart, guiding you into, that gives a bit of shape for what the church will be about. Certainly as you've been then preparing to go and kind of talking it around with others, you've also been praying about it and hopefully had the chance to pray both alone and with others and with the church that you're coming from, that they've taken time to pray with you, and perhaps there's been opportunity for prophetic ministry as well, people bringing in words of what God's saying to them for you. And perhaps there are consistent themes that have come through in the prophetic stuff, in the way you've been prayed for, that when you weigh it up, you think, yeah, this is from God. Like, there's something here from him that really helps shape what the church plant will be about, what it is that we're going to do. So you want to take the Great Commission, you want to see what God's been saying to you, and couple it with the place you're going. What's the context of where you will be? Again, think back to the example of Nehemiah. You know, he heard this report about Jerusalem, he was burdened, he prayed about it, but then what he did next is he went there. And he took some time, didn't announce it, was under the radar, but he was looking around. He was trying to get a sense for himself of what the place was like. He'd walk the area that he was concerned about, that he was wanting to do something for. Before I moved up here to Manchester, this is something I did quite a few times. In the video about calling, I talked about one of those examples, but there were loads of times that I would just come up here knowing that God was speaking to me about this area, just trying to learn about this place. Initially, it was just walking and observing and praying, and then gradually started networking as well, like meeting different people who were already up here, involved in different things, like including people who were leading churches already in this area, and just getting to know what is the place like, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the opportunities, and getting a sense for that, and getting to know people, what life is like, and reading the history of the place. And then you get to the point where you're moving in and you start living there, and through all of this, there's that question of what is it that God is impressing upon me? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I noticing? And that forms that burden, but also turns into that vision for, I think this might be what God is asking us to do here in this place. And so you take those ingredients, that conviction of what the commission is that Jesus has given us, this sense of the prophetic and what God has been speaking, what you've seen as you've walked the area and learned about it, and let this burden formulate within you. And then you bring all that together. But the way you bring it together isn't kind of just in your mind, but it's through prayer, isn't it? A vision isn't something that you invent of your own kind of wisdom and best idea. It's given by God. So it's not just kind of you get a flip chart and piece it all together. You feed these things into prayer. And so it's not just prayer like, hey, God, give me a vision. It's informed prayer. It's God, I'm hearing this from you, and I've heard this word, and, I've been seeing this, and how does this connect with this? And, here's the Great Commission. Here's what I'm kind of seeing in that. And it's letting these things percolate together in that place of prayer. Let it churn over time. It's not like one prayer session and you're done, but keep coming back to it in that prayerful place. I love talking about the slow, prayerful mull. And I think that's really important here, where you just take these things and let them sit and let them keep returning as you're in prayer. And at other times too, they'll come to mind and can bring you back into prayer, and just let it, in the presence of God, these things kind of come together in your mind and get a sense for what God is impressing upon you. This is also a good stage as you're doing this to draw other people into the conversation, particularly those who will be planting with you. If you're planting with a spouse, it's really important to be talking about what you're seeing and what your partner's seeing, and together to get a shared vision for it. And the prophetic stuff, the burden stuff, all of it, you want to be discussing together. And your kids as well, that your vision becomes their vision, that what they're seeing and hearing from God as well feeds into it too. And if you have a fledgling team at this point, you want to be talking it through with them as well. And for those who might join in later, this vision will be part of what they're joining into. You want it to be a shared ownership, if you can, of the vision as much as is possible. And then you want to allow some time as well before going public. Like the day after you think you've nailed it probably isn't the moment to go public with the vision. Just sit with it for a bit. The last thing you want is to rush to put something out there and then realize a little bit later, oh, maybe that wasn't it. Maybe that isn't quite the vision that I'm seeing. Maybe it's something else, and have to kind of walk it back a bit. You don't really want to be in that situation if you can help it. We can sometimes mistake excitement for vision, where we get all fired up for something. But one of the things that separates excitement from vision is time. Like I can think of so many times, and perhaps you can as well, of sitting with someone who starts explaining all the things they're going to do, and it sounds great. And then you ask them about it a few weeks later, it's like, oh yeah, that's not a thing anymore. Oh yeah, I've forgotten about that. And it's there in the moment, but then it's gone. Sitting with that vision over time and just continuing to pray into it and letting it form deeper roots within you is a really powerful thing to do. And during that time, like journal, like write about it, come back to it in prayer, maybe share it with one or two trusted people, and let it start to be questioned, and see what happens in you when people ask, oh, but what about this, or why that? And as you have to give the answers, does it survive within your own spirit, it being questioned, or does it kind of fall apart? So, oh yeah, good point. Maybe it's not a thing after all. So just see what happens and see how robust it is. It is absolutely okay not to have the vision totally fleshed out from the beginning of gathering. You're starting to pray into something, especially if you've got that sense of burden or that calling there from God. But you do want to get there, and get there pretty early. You're looking for a compelling narrative. This is who we are. This is where we're going. This is what we're about and what we're doing. Come join us. This is our church plan. Once you have a bit of clarity, and once you've taken that time, and once you can say, yeah, this is what our vision is, then you want to be communicating that vision and taking the opportunities, every opportunity you can, to do so through one-on-one conversations, and particularly with those who are interested in joining you. It's a really good thing to be sharing. This is the vision. This is what we're about. This is what you will be joining into. Through to how you're preaching, like the vision being a consistent and common theme coming through in your preaching, to the way you run your prayer meetings. As you're praying together, you're praying into your vision, or the way you're praying out in other contexts, in your Sunday gatherings or your midweek meetings, or you're praying one-on-one with people, or gatherings of other leaders, or different things where prayer comes up to be praying into your vision. But if you're bringing your vision up a lot, it's probably best to not always use the same words. It can sometimes be easy to get a vision statement, and I think having some well-chosen language is a good thing. That's like what would go on your website or your flyers, or might be used in a kind of centerpiece sermon. Like there is a place for well-chosen language. But if you're always going to that language, it just sounds like a polished pitch. It doesn't sound like real conversation that real people have. You want to try and maybe match the formality of your language to the context. So if it's a context where you are making a bit of a pitch, then yeah, by all means, use your kind of well-honed language. But a lot of the time, that's not what you're doing. You're just having a one-on-one conversation. So being able to speak authentically about your vision without having to use a certain form of words can be really powerful. You might want to think about it as like a world that you're living in. You see this world, you see how things can be you're inhabiting it, you're praying into it, you're thinking about it, and it's this world that you're describing rather than just a couple of polished lines. And so as you're talking to people, you're describing the world, you're inhabiting it and inviting them to join you in this world of what you can see. People can usually tell when you're carrying it and when you embody this. And it can be a compelling thing if someone's heart is leaning them in a similar way to what you're seeing. If they're seeing the same thing and the way you're talking, they can tell you, you inhabit this world too. That can be an attractive thing. Now, be ready in those early days that you will need to keep repeating the vision. Nobody is going to carry it. Nobody's going to live in that world more than you do. That will actually be true all the time through the whole life of the church plan, but especially in the early days. So you need to keep coming back to it or it will be forgotten. It's been said that vision leaks, and I know it's a bit cliche. It is true though. Like if you're not talking about it and inviting people into this world, then people will be creating their own worlds, their own vision, their own sense. Well, this is what it might be. That's what it might be. And they may all be different from where you're going. It's also true that growth creates vacuum. The more you grow, it's easy for people to fill the gap with, well, we've got a bit more capacity. Maybe we will do this thing. Maybe we'll do that thing. Maybe we'll do the other thing. Clarity of vision, repetition of vision will help create this shared understanding of, and as we grow, this will guide what we do. This will help us decide what to do next, what opportunities to step into, what we're going to go after. So the repetition of vision is important. It can be a lonely thing in those early days, realizing it might take a while for other people to get it. So for a period of time, maybe quite a long one sometimes, you might be the only one who can see it. You might be the only one who can understand it. And you tell other people, and sometimes there's just a kind of glazed look on their face and they feel underwhelmed, or they feel this kind of reaction of, I'm not quite seeing it yet. That's a normal thing. It's not necessarily a sign that something is wrong. Last thing to say for this session, try and hold the vision with a bit of humility and a bit of teachability, particularly with regards to those who have oversight or care of you. You do want to hold it. There's a sense this is from God. This is precious. I don't want this to be easily chipped or chiseled away. But at the same time, carrying that humility with it. I am holding this with open hands before God. Like the moment you think you've heard from God isn't the point to then stop listening, because God will continue to speak, continue to guide, continue to refine. One of the ways he can do this is through other people around you as well. So do hold that balance of holding precious onto what's given by God to you, and that readiness to keep hearing, keep listening, keep receiving, keep being teachable. There's some thoughts on vision and church planting. Hopefully they've been of some help to you. We're going to carry on in our next session looking at the place of prayer in church planting. So do subscribe to the channel, do check back. Also do check out our website for more from us. That's www.thebroadcastnetwork.org. And we will be back soon with more church planting practical foundations content. So we'll see you next time.